A pretty typical range day in ES following yesterday's monster move on the back of CPI. Anytime you have a big volatility expansion move, anytime you have any type of monster trend move, you want to be prepared for a breather. You want to be prepared for a little bit of volatility contraction, and that usually comes via some type of range day, some type of tighter action. That's pretty much exactly what we saw today. Just looking at today's action, we only traded 1/2 of a normal ATR, which is, of course, going to be pretty light compared to what we've been seeing over the past few sessions. And so coming into today, just to recap, I was primarily focused on the reaction versus that prior day high, wanting to see if buyers could essentially continue to hold the bid. We do pull back initially off of the open. You can see that here's the 5 minute with kind of a 2 or 2.5 session look back. Pull back off of the open there into the prior day value high. Catches a bounce there, didn't quite fill the gap. That was an important detail for the session. So didn't quite fill the gap right there, didn't even test the prior day volume point of control. I had mentioned in the think tank shortly after 10 a.m., that was a really good clue that buyers are pretty much still in control of this tape, basically telling us that, you want to be cautious with the shorts given the current conditions. So we do ultimately end up rolling over kind of later in the morning, kind of into that early afternoon. You do get a test of the prior day volume point of control right through here. The gap actually fills, right? And that was a good spot for buyers to step in. Now just continued range trading. I mean, look how tight this range is. And so generally speaking, like I was mentioning this morning, it's not uncommon for traders to get absolutely walloped on a session like this because expectation management. If you don't get your expectations in line, if you don't kind of do a mental reset following a big trend day, a big volatility expansion day, you're going to be in for a lot of pain. And I know that to be true because I've experienced it time and time again, and I have helped clients get through that exact thing. So just remember, anytime you have some type of volatility expansion, just be prepared for a little bit of contraction. It doesn't necessarily mean it will come the next session, but of course is all about expectation management and just making sure that, we're not expecting something outside of the norm. Now, one interesting thing about the index today, if we actually take a look at QQQ, I'd kind of talked about this yesterday in the end of day scan. This is going to be an important reference point, that QQQ July high. So if you look at the session high from today, it's right there. It's right there into that July high. So this is definitely, an area where if you're long on this rally over the past few weeks, where's kind of the number one spot you want to be taking profits or heavily reducing? Well, it's going to be into that most recent July high. Right? And so bit of a breather today, no real pullback. I mean, if we're calling this a pullback, it is very, very small. We do have the fast MA way down here, still at 376. So anytime you get price, especially in the index, this is especially true. Anytime you have price really pulling away from that fast MA, it's time to start expecting at least some type of breather. Remember when we were trading, and this is true for ES as well, but remember when we were trading through here, right? We saw that massive rally last week. Price can correct via one of two ways. It's either going to correct via a pullback, which is a correction through price, or it's going to correct through time, which is just going to be a range. It's going to be some consolidation. That fast MA catches up, right? And buyers continue to step in. So is that possibly what we see here into Thursday, Friday? Continued range trading, right? Do we see a bit of a pullback to fill the gap? Again, I'm not in the prediction business. I merely react to what price is showing, but these are some things we want to be thinking about. Now, remember, the trend here is bullish. You don't want to be very aggressive in the shorts until we start to see a major change in character on the daily chart. However, this recently just showed a change in character that favored the bulls, right? And so I had mentioned, at least on ES, that once we broke this most recent high, this early October high, that the ultimate target for this move is the July high, similar to what we see in NQ and QQQ. Now, does this mean it's going to be a missile straight there without any pullbacks? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the target for this change in character is these highs up here in 246.75 area. So just something to keep in mind. I'm going to be focusing primarily on long setups. It doesn't mean I won't take shorts. It just means I'm going to be more tactical with how I approach the shorts, being very cautious with the spots that I pick. Another note here on ES, very similar to what we just talked about in QQQ. Look at that fast MA, right? So what I'm thinking is, are we going to see some type of breather here, much like we did, early November last week? That's kind of the question. Or are we going to pull back, fill that CPI gap through here? Once again, not in the prediction business. So some things to think about into Thursday, Friday. As far as tomorrow, as far as just focusing on tomorrow's session, what I'm going to be looking at is this near-term structure. I want to see how today's low is treated if we test it, right? If that fails, you can get a test down here into that 4,500. That's going to be a big psychological level. And then what we really want to be assessing is what the buying appetite is versus 4,500. And more importantly, versus 44.85, which is, again, big gap below that area. And so what I'm kind of expecting a bit here is just, some consolidation, which is what we saw again last week. So some things to think about. Once again, just remember, this is no crystal ball or anything like that. We just always want to be keeping an open mind about how price can unfold, thinking about potential different scenarios of what we may see. That tends to help us stay on the right side of things and not get really caught off sides, really surprised by anything. So for tomorrow, just to keep it extremely simple, main focus is going to be essentially today's range, very similar to today's approach. We want to see how price trades versus today's range. That's going to be even more important in the QQQ NQ, simply because check the significance of, now it's a little different on NQ, but check the significance of today's high on QQQ. We are into that July high. Now, this particular daily candle, not exactly bullish, right? Not exactly bullish. It's kind of giving some clues that there may be some exhaustion here. So just some things we want to think about coming into tomorrow's session. So that's pretty much the index. As far as individual names, the list was pretty light. I had coin. We've been watching this one for a few weeks, trading it here and there, still putting in that nice move up through that 98.4 area. Now, ultimate target on this one is 114, 115 area, those recent highs up through here. We do also have, so for tomorrow, that'll be a continuation watch. We do also have Disney. This gapped up this morning. Big gap higher, holds the gap, right? Definitely some relative strength here. Again, we noted that relative strength. I think it was back in early November on one of these days. And so still showing relative strength. Now, what's really interesting about this is that if we can get a break of 95, there's still some big unfilled gaps here, and those tend to fill pretty quickly. And so we'll be looking for the continuation there in Disney. Let's take a look at Target. Nailed this one today. Trigger was 125. PT2 131, right? It's poised to close on session high. So that was a killer trade. I'm just looking for the second day of continuation play here in Target. Then we have SE. This is an inside day, right? We nailed the long here today. This was a solid setup. Talked about, again, that first day volume point of control. That's accumulation. That's people buying shares, right? So you gap up, you defend that kind of, that tight range down there, and it's a long. So you take the long into, we had PT1 right here at 38 up into 39. Doesn't really see much follow through above that, which I had mentioned if you were in the pre-market live stream, this is pretty much the main target, 39 for this trade. So for tomorrow, there's an inside day play. You should know how to trade the inside day. Just looking for a break of today's range. That's pretty much it. Main focus is going to always be the index. Once again, just looking at this near-term structure, we want to see prior day low, or rather today's low, how that's treated, and more importantly, the 4,500 area. Then on QQQ, keep a particular eye on today's high, because the significance of this is that it is the prior July high, right? Alrighty. That's pretty much the list for tomorrow. Got a number of decent ideas to work with, and then a decent setup here in the index as well. So I'll see you guys in the morning for the pre-market prep live stream. Hope everyone had a great day. Have a good evening.